How you doing, lads? Welcome back to the Naked and Famous podcast. We're down here at the Blind Pig of Westchester. I'm Dublin's Dan O'Cattle, and I'm joined here with your hosts.
Hey folks, I'm Jimmy B.
Anthony Garcia.
And I'm Marlon Carranza.
Welcome back, guys. Thank you to everybody last week for all the support. We appreciate all the likes, the subscribers, all of the reposts, and anybody who helped us out. Thank you so much for your input and your support. We appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I guess we're back here again to talk cocktails, talk hospitality, and we're back to it's going to be the regular three, me, James, and Anthony. We're joined with our guest, Marlon, today, who's works alongside us as our work colleague, a friend, and, you know, one of the piglets. So first thing we're going to get started on today is basically how it came to be with me and James. I'm going to let James start it off with how we met.
Yeah, guys. So I'm Jimmy B. I wasn't here last week, but very excited to be here for the future. So how we get started, me and Dano, we initially worked together in a bar called the Coachman's that was owned by a guy called Kirby Mannix, who's actually our business partner at the moment. And I worked construction when I came here first to the States. It's been 8 years now. And the first year/2 years, I was a carpenter. I was doing interior work, doing doors, doing crown molding. And then in the second year I moved here, I was working on a large building site and also a house in Jersey. And I remember specifically, it got to the winter time and I was working outside on the deck of a house in the freezing cold, and everything was slippy and everything was dangerous. And then I was like, I cannot do this shit anymore. I was like, there got to be an easier way. So it was funny. Every single weekend, I used to go to the bar that Dano worked in, and I looked at him wearing like clean clothes, smile on his face, tons of ladies around him, and I was like, that's it. I was like, I'm packing up my tools, throwing them out, and then it pretty much went from there. I started working with Dano, and we worked together for about 3 months or so. Then we actually both went our separate ways. I worked in the city. I believe you worked in the city as well, Dan, right?
Yeah, so initially I started out in construction also. I was doing some labouring for some concrete. Every day I'd come home from work, I'd be blowing black stuff out my nose every day. You know, the weekend I'd go out for, you know, maybe on Saturday night I'd feel like shit. I wasn't used to it. I was a hairdresser back in Ireland, so definitely wasn't my forte, as they say. I was working in the bar and I knew James through one of his relatives actually was an employer of one of my best friends, Ado Kearns, who I came out to America with. He was working carpentry, and he always told me, you know, these lads are great guys, they're good crack. And I got to know James working in the Coachman's, as he said, and we pretty much hit it off straight away. He was always, like, sound. I was sitting watching him, though, and I was like, all right, this guy, he does not want to be doing what he's doing. So I said to him, I'm like, listen, why don't you jump in here, work with me? I'm like, we'd kill it together. We worked together really well. Like, you know, jump in here. There's not much to know behind the bar. It was a dive bar in the Bronx. Like, realistically, it was just beer and shots. Maybe every now and then you do a vodka soda, vodka Red Bull, but that was it. So we got together. We started working together. We had about 3 months of madness down at the Coachman's in the Bronx. Anyone who knows the Coachman's in the Bronx knows what it's about.
Madhouse.
It's a madhouse, right? So me and Jimmy B eventually went our separate ways, where he went down to O'Brien's, worked in Manhattan. I went down to Manhattan very briefly. I went around Hell's Kitchen. I worked in a place called Latitude. Then I was like, nah, I'm not going down here every day. So I ended up in White Plains, just randomly walking through it one day. And I was like, I knew there was a bunch of dudes up here who I knew, but I didn't want to ask them for a job. And they were standing outside the restaurant. So I was like, I'll go across the street. Just happened to be Brazen Fox where I ended up. I was there for a little while, and, you know, they needed a guy, and I was like, here, listen, I know a lad. I was like, I know a lad who I want to work with. So I asked Jimmy B. Jimmy B said, yeah. We ran it through the guys in Brazen. Next thing you know, we're back together working on it again.
That's true. Yeah, you know, I feel like bartending was always in the cards for me, and I knew it for a fact because initially when I was working construction, I was working like 75, 80 hours a week. And then I switched companies and I was only working 40 hours a week. And I was like, okay, well, I got an extra 30 hours. I got to do something with them. So I ended up bartending Friday night and Saturday night. So I worked construction Monday to Friday. And then Friday night and Saturday night, I bartended. And I was more excited to go to work Friday night and Saturday night, even though I was wrecked tired, than it was to get up for work on Monday. And after a while, I'm like, I just got to make this the full-time habit. But actually, funny enough, to your point, when you called me and said you want to come up and work on Brazen Fox, I was just after getting fired/quit. So I was like, this
The
is
old
perfect.
quit fire.
Yeah, the quit fire.
Quit fire.
Yeah. So I was like, this is perfect. Absolutely. I thought it was great how technically I got fired/quit on my day off, my first day off. So but quick backstory. So I was working 4 days a week. I was off Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So got fired/quit on Tuesday. And then I got a call on Wednesday saying, do you want a job? Showed up on Thursday. And then I was working on Friday. So I didn't miss a beat. And I was like, this is great. This is amazing.
That's the way. We had some crack working with the lads at Brazen Fox. Anybody who knows the lads down there, Phil, Vinny, Seamus, Sparno, Davey Scott, Edel, Quinn, Jules, like Silvio, Eugene, O'Mara, Sean. We had a great time working with that whole crew. Like, it was honestly at the time one of the best crews I ever worked with. It was just serious banter. But me and Jimmy B had like a unique bond, I'd say, because we both lived
Very
in Woodlawn.
unique.
Very unique. We both lived in Woodlawn. We were both very similar age. And you know, we were hitting the gym together a lot. And I feel like we were both on the same path in that way. We would always talk about. At one point, we were like, we're gonna open up a fitness cafe. So instead of like bars, we hadn't even thought about that yet. We seen this place, Sousa Fit in Mount Vernon. We were stopping in after.
Shout out to Sousa Fit.
Shout out to Sousa Fit legends. We were going in there, and it was basically like, here, we could do this. Like, no problem, we could do this. Something like it. Anyway, like, you know, and we were in White Plains. We are like, White Plains has nothing like this. We're coming all the way down to Mount Vernon for this every day. So I don't know how we were in the gym, and basically we got to the bar.
Yeah, it just was. I feel like there was a light bulb moment at one point, because we were shooting it back and forth for a while, and we were like, we got to do something. If you want to exceed, if you want to like excel, you have to branch off on your own. And then one day it was like, well, we're both bartenders. Why don't we just open a bar?
It definitely made more
Yeah,
sense.
I was like, eureka!
Ah.
Yeah.
When did the concept of the pig come?
So
That's a good
I
question.
would say, like, great question, Tony, man. We were bartending, we were working. Eventually, I had the old split from Brazen Fox, the old quit fire.
The quick fire.
So went from Brazen Fox, and I went down to the city, back to Manhattan again. I worked at the Penrose very briefly. I seen what they were doing. I was like, this is not happening anywhere. Then I bounced around to a few other cocktail bars, and I was like, right, this is something that I didn't know even existed. And I was like, it's not happening in White Plains at all. I'd have been in White Plains for like 4 years and nothing.
And you mean like your first cocktail bar you worked in, right?
Yeah, first cocktail
Yeah.
bar. So I went back then working for Connolly's, just Times Square for Bernie Riley. It was great money, you know, grand place. Like, just, you're dealing with tourists every day. It was no cocktails, but they were opening a hotel bar next door, and basically gave me the reins and, you know, doing the cocktail program. They're setting it up, and they didn't have much experience in that. And that gave me, like, the Marion Row. Anyone check it out? It's a really nice cocktail bar. It's like a boutique hotel down in Midtown Manhattan, right off Times Square. But that gave me, like, the opportunity to, like, set up my own bar for someone else, obviously. But they gave me the reins. I worked on that, and me and James were talking and I was like, yo, we can do a cocktail bar. James was like, yeah, fuck doing like a sports bar, let's do a cocktail bar. No point in like trying to compete with Brazen Fox. It's already got the market. So we just were shooting it back and forth from there, Jimmy B, right?
Yeah, and then Dano reached out to Kirby, who we had previously worked with, and we had a good relationship with. And then, listen, one thing led to another, and now the Blind Pig just became the Blind Pig. Yeah, we designed it ourselves,
actually
worked it
came up-
ourselves.
I'm sorry for cutting across you, Jimmy B.
Go ahead, man.
We actually came up and looked at the Archie Grand, right?
Oh, yeah.
We actually came up and
That's
looked at
true.
the Archie Grand, and we were looking around, we were like, and Kirby didn't like it. Kirby is like, you know, honestly, he didn't like it. Kirby didn't like it. Me and James were like, we'll crush it right here. And on our way home, we passed by Ty's Tavern. And funny enough, Ty's Tavern had went out of business, like, I think the week before. Not went out of business. The Ty's, they ran this place for such a long time, they shut it down. So once they shut it down, they walked away from it. The gentleman was in his 70s, and he'd done his last St. Patrick's Day, and he had enough. And we just happened to be coming by, and Kirby's like, what about this place? And I was like, it's far away, never heard of it. But it turned out once we got inside and had a look, that it was definitely the better choice for us. And here we are, like, you know, it's we came in, me and James in our underwear were like cleaning out the basement.
That's
literally
actually true,
black.
yeah.
And we looked at each other
Yeah.
one time, we're like, we will never do this again. Little did we know. Little did we know.
Yeah, no, that's true. The basement was like hot, filthy, dirty.
No walls.
Yeah, nothing. We basically went in, power washed everything, scrubbed down everything, and within like 10 minutes, we were just covered in dirt and water and just nastiness. And we're like, oh well, off it goes. I guess it's that time of the party.
Yeah.
But yeah, we realized we only had to do something like that once, and after that, you know, I say once. We've obviously done it like a million times since, like all this kind of kitchen scrubbing. Remember that time we were scrubbing in the kitchen?
Yeah.
We were up until like 2 a.m.
Scrubbing an overpass.
Yeah.
We were scrubbing an
Yeah, it's
overpass
crazy.
because we didn't have enough money to buy a new overpass.
Mm.
So we got the overpass that was here until we could like get the business up and running, and it sustained itself where we could get a new one. But we literally were up scrubbing an overpass with like 70 years of grease on it. It took us maybe, I want to say like 6 to 7 hours. We were,
Honestly, yeah.
my
Yeah.
fingers were raw.
Yeah. It was difficult, but it was all worth it in the end. And now we're in a position where we don't have to do that again. Thank God. Like when you go on to, you mentioned about OMC, right?
Yeah.
When you go on and open up OMC, there's going to be no scrubbing. And you open a Mason Creme, no scrubbing.
Zero scrubbing.
Zero
Yeah,
scrubbing.
you guys come a long way. This is gonna be like the baby that.
Yeah.
This is where it all
Just the-
began.
just
And
the
it'll never
Nino.
Yeah.
change. This will always be the first step.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just the Nino.
What's great about the fact that we did do the scrubbing is that like now we appreciate when we have a track record that people will finance us on equipment or whatever, we can get new equipment. But if we hadn't have done the scrubbing in the start, we wouldn't appreciate it the way we do now. Like, you know. But that's how we entered into hospitality pretty much, and honestly I wouldn't change it for the world. But we know how Tony entered into hospitality. What about Marlon?
Man, I've had an interesting journey into the hospitality game. Not one by much planning on my end, I would say. Guys, my name is Marlon. Colleague of the lads, bartender here at the Blind Pig of Westchester.
Legend.
Side legend. But yeah, I actually used to work down in Manhattan for a long time in the whole office administration game. That was kind of where I really saw myself down the line, really being, you know, someplace in a upper executive level in an office in Midtown, having my own office, kind of thing, suit and tie,
A
kind of
big
thing.
shot.
Yeah, it was something that was definitely a big topic of curiosity for me, watching like, you know, Fortune 500 guys become made and live this really exuberant lifestyle that was, I thought could only be achieved through going this kind of status quo kind of route that is kind of perceived amongst society, if you will.
Man, it definitely doesn't have the same amount of joy in it.
No,
Like maybe it does for some people, but we have serious crack.
yeah, I would say if you're like, this is still a business, you know what I mean, and this is us still building it, and we have a grand old time doing it.
So what position were you in, if you don't mind me asking, when you were in an office?
So I used to work for this executive office leasing company, where essentially we'd go into a building, we'll do a complete demolition, complete renovation, and build out these individual kind of full service office suites. So, you know, if you're ready
Isn't
to
it like WeWork?
kind of like WeWork, yeah. So we were actually in its early days. WeWork was number 3 in the market space, simply because of their just their capital. I want to say there's 3 major companies in that shared office space, and there's a lot of them that has branched out ever since. And I'm talking back in like 2013, 2014. Regis, I worked for a company called J Suites, and then there was WeWork at the bottom. And they were pretty much standardized. I would say, like, you're ready to move out of your garage? Cool, you go to WeWork. You're ready to kind of, you know, be a little bit more serious about your business? You came to J Suites. If you're really, you know, you have the funds and you want to push a little bit more luxury route of that office space, just for the more prestigious address, as, you know, in Manhattan is really important, you'd go to a place like Regis. I left there as their general manager. I was there for about 3 years, I want to say. Started as a front desk associate and kind of just worked my way up the ranks pretty quickly. I want to say I held the general manager title for about 2 out of those 3 years, so pretty quick progression. But then, after a while, it was a great job, man. I mean, it's hard to complain. I was 24 years old. I had a salary, a 401k, had a corner office looking at the Empire State Building and a rooftop that I could throw parties on. So it was kind of a hard job to really talk me out of.
How did you know that you were done there when you were leaving? Like, what made you say to yourself, like, all right, man, I got to give this up?
Man, one thing about me that I think if you guys all have noticed is, like, I can be pretty autonomous and self-sufficient. So one thing I don't really deal well with is, like, micromanagement.
Right.
So it was definitely something that was building up, and definitely something that was it was interesting because it's like they're willing to micromanage you when it's a point of focus on your job, but when you have to talk about, like, your own concerns with how the job is going, they're very avoidant. Especially when it came to, like, renewing my contract, which they neglected for like 8 months, which was hilarious. But they're willing to, call me on my off days just to ask me. He's like, hey, where'd you put why is the power drill not where it should be? And I was like, why don't you ask the porter that's on duty and not call me?
So they're more than happy to give and not as happy to receive.
Yeah. Or more than happy to receive on, like, what we're dishing out in terms of work and producing versus not willing to kind of pay their fair share in terms of holding their employees as a valuable asset. You know what I mean? But yeah, that was, I went to, just so happened that about a week prior to before me leaving, my girlfriend at the time working in restaurants, I stumbled upon this open house for a restaurant over in Tarrytown. And I'm like, man, place of high prestige, high merit. And I'm thinking to myself, we should go check this out. If she's going to work in restaurants, this is more likely the place you want to be.
Yeah, what was the first restaurant you worked at?
It was called Blue Hill at Stone Barns over in Botanical Hills.
You went straight to Blue Hill.
I went straight to Blue Hill.
It's the first thing you told me when I met him.
Yeah.
So, we get there and I'm just thinking more so, I'm like, like I said, I'm stuck in my ways in this, in the job that I have down in Manhattan. So I'm just thinking more for her, like, hey, this will be great, get there, go to this open house. And then I'm under the assumption that we're just kind of getting this tour and, you get a little history of the place. And then turns out it's open interviews.
Oh, wow.
Funny enough, I had no expectation of being interviewed. So I'm walking in there with, like, all black Timbs, ripped skinny jeans, a hoodie, and a trench coat, looking like real
And a trench coat.
New York Fashion Week in 2017.
And they were like, this is the guy.
And then sure, I look and then I turn over and she has her resume. I'm like, you brought your resume? She's like, yeah, you didn't bring one? It's like, you didn't tell me to bring my fucking resume.
Yeah, it's your first time working.
So I'm sitting around this really, like, austere table. It's like a couple, like, just 6-foot tables built in a U shape around these two dudes sitting in front of this very, very large room. So you already feel really small. And everyone's just sitting there, like, to the nines, waiting to go up and talk to these guys in front of everyone. And I'm like, holy shit. So they finally call me up. I show them my resume on my phone. And the first thing they say to me is, don't quit your day job. And I remember thinking,
very first thing
that
they
was
said.
the very first thing they said after looking at my resume. Is like, don't quit your day job. And I'm thinking to myself, why would I do that when I'm 24? Like I said, I've got a pretty comfortable lifestyle.
They were probably actually giving you some solid advice.
I want to say so, yeah.
Yeah, right. They probably were actually been like, yo, this guy's doing pretty well.
I figured that much. He definitely mentioned it being more supplemental. Lo and behold, about 5 days later, so this was on a Saturday, that following ensuing Wednesday, I'm at my office gig, and I get a phone call from one of my bosses, and he said, do me a favor, go around to all the TVs that are based around the spaces and make sure all the volumes are set to a particular level. I'm assuming one of the tenants probably made a noise complaint about one of the TVs. I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. So, made sure that got done. And here's the thing. They'll ask you to do something, and then they'll be sitting in their office, and they'll just follow you on the cameras, watching you go do it, and then wait to see if you do it. And then they'll call you as soon as you're done, or they'll call you in the middle of you doing it. And it's just kind of creepy. So
yeah, micromanagement is kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's like, tell me to do something, then let me do it.
I would assume you hired me to do the
weird.
job because you trust me to do it. So why don't you just let me do it? In any event, he calls me back afterwards. He goes, put the phone up to the TV and let me hear it.
Fuck off.
Yeah, and I'm in my head, like, it took me a while to process it, and I was already kind of like having a rough day because they had me like running around like a madman already. And afterwards, I just had it. I hung up the phone on them. Went to my desk. I typed up my resignation email. I called up all of my staff and associates, all the secretaries who work underneath me in all the different locations. Held about it like a good hour and a half meeting. Gave them the rundown. I was like, hey guys, this is what you're gonna deal with for the rest of the week. At the end of the month, these are all the move outs. These are all the move ins. Trying to get them really prepared, for my absence. And then I looked at them. I was like, so I'm going to walk out now and I'm not coming back. And they're like, what? I was like, yeah, I'm walking up to my computer. I'm going to hit send on my resignation email. And then that's it. Like, I really appreciate working with you guys. It was a really good time.
At least you're nice about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I very much so enjoyed that crew that worked with me because a lot, you're only as good as the team that helps you.
100%.
So,
Agreed.
I definitely attribute a lot of my success in moving up those ranks really quickly to my ability to kind of input systems that people can work very well in.
Yeah.
Kind of like building it more to their strengths. So
And funny you say about quitting a job. When I first quit construction, actually, I was on the way down the city, and it was like I was doing this guy a favor. I didn't have a license. He's asked me to drive the truck and pick up like a little bit of timber before work, and it's like 7 a.m. I don't start work till like 8 a.m. I had to get up at 6 to go do it. I'm on the way down, not on the clock, and the dude rings me, and the first thing he do is he's like cursing at me, and I was just like, yeah, I'm leaving your van in Harlem. I hung up the phone, and that was it. I was like, fuck this guy. But man, people got to understand is like, if you like James said over there, like if you're trying to receive, you got to give,
Yeah.
right? And you can't expect someone who you're giving them a little bit of, you're giving them a long leash to say like, okay, I trust you to do this, and yet now I'm reining it in every time, because
100%.
that's almost worse, you.
yeah. So that was, lo and behold, I'm sitting on the Metro North on my way home after having just quit. It's like 10:30. And I'm looking at my emails, and I see an email from my now former boss. And they're saying, we'll see you. We're going to send you a letter letting you know when to see you in court for apparently they were under the impression that I was in breach of contract. But they neglected to renew my contract 8 months prior. So I actually responded back to them saying, like, yeah, sure, let me know when court is, and don't forget to bring your checkbook because you owe me 8 months retro 401k contribution, benefit contribution, raise, vacation contribution. So, like, by all means, I'm more than happy to show up to court.
Yeah.
I take it court went well.
They never responded to me. They never.
That sounds like it went well.
So then just underneath that email was an email from the events manager over at Blue Hill. Very dear friend and somebody I consider a mentor of mine. And he's like, hey, come on in for orientation on Saturday.
Who's that?
His name is Hannes Waldner. Really, really incredible guy to work with, work under. Definitely
Nice.
showed me a lot, taught me a lot, put me in a lot of very advantageous positions
So
within the
let's
industry.
speak about some of the stuff that you learned at Blue Hill. Like, is your first job in hospitality? What type of experience did you have? What were the guests like, and what type of things did you learn? Like, what did it bring to the table?
Yeah, I'd say there wasn't too much of a disconnect between hospitality and what I was doing before. I felt like it was still kind of one and the same thing. Customer service is still kind of hospitality.
That's
if you
how
will.
I felt with hairdressing. And
Yeah,
hospitality.
it's more about, like you have somebody who you're providing a service to. You kind of want to make them feel really good about making a decision to kind of work with you, if you will. But yeah, I remember my very first day at Blue Hill. Ironically enough, they asked me to go help the bartender set up the bar. And he's like, hey, man, I walk up to him. I was like, hey, man, do you need anything? Let me know. He's like, yeah, do me a favor. Go to the kitchen. Get me a Cambro and 2 Lexans. I was like, cool. What's a Cambro? What's a Lexan?
Oh, you
Where
told
do
me
I
this.
find it?
Yeah.
He looks me straight in the face and says, you have 2 eyes, right? Why don't you go to the fucking kitchen and use them? And in my head, I'm sitting here thinking, like, do I smack the shit out of this guy, or do I like go to the kitchen and use my
You've
fucking
got the
eyes?
2 angels.
Yeah, I'm
And
sitting there. I'm like, this is my first day on the job. I'm like, I can't believe somebody just said this to me. And I'm like, I'm going to go fuck myself. So I turn around and I walk away, and I'm like, okay, let me show these people, like, I'm not here to fuck around. Like, like I like to think I have a pretty strong work ethic, and I want people to know that I'm not here to bullshit. So, I made it happen. That was day one.
So you found the camera.
I found the Cambros, and I found Alexa.
To anyone who doesn't know what a Cambro is, Marlon, just explain.
Yeah.
Oh, a Cambro is just a very beautiful plastic vessel that is marked with a whole bunch of different measurements for you to keep anything
It's
that you
it's a
like in.
container.
It is food safe, approved.
It's amazing.
Oh
It's
my
actually one of the most useful tools that we
It
have.
is one of the most useful things ever.
Man, when I was working in construction, literally every time I was a hairdresser. Every single time they asked me for a tool, I'd be like, what's that? What's that?
Yeah.
Like James, I know he was actually good at construction. Like anybody who worked with James used to always say to me, like my friends worked with him, be like, nah, he's handy. And I've worked with him now here, and it's like I'm the guy who holds the stuff while James does it. But honestly, like I had one time, I had a guy turn around to me and he's like, "You're the most awkward looking motherfucker I've ever seen with a tool in your hand." And I was like, "Yeah, this is not what I use this for."
Oh Lord.
But I'm pretty sure we can all agree that Marlon is like one of the more informed people in like kind of like the cocktail world, and like, you know, he knows what tastes good.
Anyone who knows Marlon knows, like,
Yeah.
he's extremely knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Like, and his level of his level of, I would say, control in hospitality is like next to none. It's definitely something that he was taught at Blue Hill. It's definitely something. Now it's also his personality in general. Like, you know, you're that type of guy, but I'm sure you picked up a lot of that stuff there.
When did you kind of like start to like really put your time and effort into learning these things?
I would say, I love that question because it's definitely Blue Hill plays a very big role, obviously, clearly for being my first job, but also where I absorbed the most knowledge. Because I've always kind of known what it was long before I started working there. I've definitely always had like a passion for culinary and cuisine and cooking and things like this. I'd say down the line, eventually, I started as a food runner. Eventually, they asked me to join the main dining room as their barista, so I did that for a little while. And then going back to the event side of things, I asked them about coming back as a captain, which is more or less your server. It was just kind of like you're basically adult babysitting for the most part, and pouring wine for them, making sure the children are happy. So I was like, man, it comes at a better pay rate, and like it's really easy work, and it's definitely more of a leadership role. I was like, yeah, sure. So I inquired about it, and they were like, we'll talk about it, in the coming season. I was like, all right, cool. So season comes up, and I ask them about it again. They're like, they look at me, and they're like, you ever bartended before? And I was like, I mean, I've been to house parties, and I've thrown some drinks together for people, and no one's ever complained. And he looks at me, and he goes, perfect. Like his eyes lit up, like he found just the right candidate.
Can I stop there 1 second, Marlon?
Yeah.
I remember you told me a story about you being a barista
Yeah.
and like the spoon story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think you should tell people the spoon story.
Oh man, that was my first dose. So for those of you who don't know, there's an events program and there's the main dining room program at Blue Hill at Stone Barn. So two semi-separate entities.
I'm sorry, before we go any further, anyone who doesn't know Blue Hill at Stone Barn,
Oh man, I was there for a really fun ride. It's a world-renowned restaurant, real pioneers in sustainable and regenerative agriculture, high and fine dining, if you will. Definitely a place of that a lot of people are looking to now for.
they got a star, right?
They have 2 stars,
There you go.
so
Wow.
2 Michelin stars.
And I think they're the only place in New York outside the city, right?
Only ones in Westchester County, anything outside of New York City. So when Michelin came up in 2020, we finally got in there, which was really great. It was a surprise that Michelin hadn't thought about touching Westchester. So,
Here we are.
and here we are. So the barista story. This is my first real taste of the dining room. So dining room, it's like very high stake, very high standard. It's you don't fuck up. You're expected to know what to do pretty much like instantaneously. So I remember, I got a pretty flash forward course in making some coffee. I send out some tea service to a table, and the setups come back. And there's these very ornate, glassware and wood that's made by some Japanese guy who's dead, so you can't get any more of them. So they're like really rare, and the wood is like hand carved from a tree in David Rockefeller's backyard, and like there's a but there's also the magic of it. There's a story to everything, which is really cool. So tea service comes back, and the captain of that table brings back these tea setups, and he comes up to me and he proceeds to hold up the spoons that were out with the tea setups, and he looks at me and he holds them up to my face and he goes, you see the difference between these two spoons? And I was like, yeah. He's like, does this look like this? I'm like, no, they're different. He whips it into the barista station, like just flings it in there. He's like, I better never fucking see that on the floor ever the fuck again. And then just turns around and fucked off. And I'm like,
Man, when you're at one of these
That's
places,
crazy.
they don't seem like these type of people, right?
100%, man. And it's like, mind
they're
you,
usually speaking to you in French.
Yeah.
and if anyone's ever had
That's
the
nuts.
fortune of being in the dining room during a service, they play like crickets and like during the day they play like bird sounds and stuff like that through the speakers, and then at night they'll play like crickets and that kind of stuff.
When they're not tossing spoons at
Yeah.
the barista.
So it's like super quiet, and so it's like, and the service station is just on the other side of some pretty VIP tables, and I'm like, holy shit, like this
he
is
just did that.
yeah, it's super shock factor, and I was like, I didn't know what to do, so I was like, all right, this is another point where I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna fuck myself, like.
Now, in your opinion, do you think the guy had to go to that extent to be like, don't fucking use this fucking spoon again? Or could he just been like, Marlon, this is the spoon used for tea, this is the spoon used for this, don't do that again?
I definitely feel like it could have been that route, but I don't think the emphasis would have been made clear.
Yeah, the impact. You would
Yeah.
have eventually been like, I'll be okay. It's
No,
just a spoon.
and I'll be honest, like I was really grateful for both of those first experiences because it really taught me, like, you know, I
not
learned.
fucking around.
Yeah, I learned down the line. It's like and I learned this for myself. Some people, you know, have some frustrations with me when I get in the zone and I'm just working. I just see like, okay, get the job done, find a solution. Don't ask me, you know, help me find a solution. Don't just keep throwing more problems in the way. And it further solidified that kind of mentality, if you will, of like, be more solution oriented. Don't just stress out about the fact that this is an issue. It's like, this is temporary. The next thing is about to happen. Who knows? Maybe the next table has a really special request and you're sitting here flustered because a spoon got whipped.
Yeah.
But it just taught me the standard of execution is really high, and I held on to
I'm
that.
honestly happy that they do that stuff there because I've been working alongside Marlon, and that kind of approach he's brought sometimes, and I've learned a lot from it. Like honestly, it's like just from like working with someone who has that kind of mindset. Like I've learned a lot from it. Even like anytime when we first met you, right? All right, so we're going to like how we met you.
Oh man,
Yeah. There's
I'll
no
remember.
question.
This is a great story. So I remember I was working at Goosefeather at the time, and I came in with a good friend of mine who bartended with me, and like, yo, a speakeasy bar opened in White Plains. And I'm like, a speakeasy bar in White Plains, like, I don't see where that would fit. And at the time, like, I was really heavy into like 3-4 times a week. I'm in Manhattan, literally just like bar hopping through different cocktail bars, like all the time, and actually developing some really good relationships with some of the people there. And so it just made me want to continue to come back. So I did that like consistently. I would literally blow paychecks just going restaurant to bar to restaurant to bar to restaurant.
Research.
Basically.
R&D, baby.
So I was very, very, very comfortable in my perspective of speakeasy bar. So I'm like, all right, cool. We'll go over there. I was like, speakeasy bar in White Plains. Like, I'll be the judge of that. Let's go check it out.
And we could feel that. When Marlon came in, man, he was sitting in front of me, and I was just like, yo, who's this fucking dude?
Yeah.
I'm like, we just opened, so we're packed. And we're packed, and it's like people in White Plains, they didn't really know cocktails like you did.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, we're sitting in there, and most people are just asking stuff off the menu. And Marlon's like, make me something
Yeah.
with this chartreuse and that Amaro. And I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I stop everything I'm doing and
Yeah.
actually think. Well, go on. man.
Yeah.
So I remember, you know, we walked
People
in.
get so frustrated.
and
with
there
shit,
was,
I'm
like-
trying to make a fucking vodka soda over here. Can't you see?
So that was my impression. I was like, all right, cool. Like, we'll check that out. Walk in. You know, obviously I think when everybody walks in here, they really get the grand impression of like, oh shit, like this is definitely not of what we're so used to knowing in White Plains. So I walk in, I sit down at the bar, and I remember just asking for I think I asked you for a last word, and then you're like, cool. You told me that there was no chartreuse, and I was like, oh shit. And then I think I asked you for a Hemingway, and you're like, oh fuck, well I don't have any Luxardo. So already in my head, I'm like, you ever have those moments where you ask for something that you
Yeah.
just don't, and we know how it is now as
Yeah.
being on the other end of it, of telling someone like, oh fuck.
Just so everyone knows, we have Luxardo and chartreuse now, right? Like,
By
we
the
didn't have it initially because it was hard to source, and me and James didn't know who to go to get some of this stuff. Chartreuse, you got to go specifically to one company, but Go on.
But man, this was also like in the very, very, very
Man, it
beginning
was right
days.
off
I'm
the bat.
literally like, I'm talking. I think you guys may have been open for like 2 weeks at
Yeah.
that point because
Yeah.
it was somewhere in between the Christmas, New Year,
Yeah.
7-day stretch there. But and I remember thinking, I was like, this guy's probably thinking I'm just some pretentious cunt sitting down across from him, making his life hard.
We love you, but you kind of were.
No, honestly, man,
Yeah.
when I see Marlon coming, I used to love it because I'd be like, yo, I know that I'm getting the opportunity to do something that
gotta-
like I
you
don't
go and
get to
learn
do.
today.
But I also used to be like, yo, fuck this guy because I know he's gonna ask me for something that I'm gonna have to actually work for, which I don't mind doing at all. But at the time, we were so green, right? And
Super green.
we were trying to
Yeah.
hold the level of like that we were this cocktail bar and we were what we said, and he was coming in like testing the water, testing the water. And every time I seen him come in, I'm like, yo, he's back.
Yeah, we also, it's probably important to note that at that time, we were still figuring out our systems that we implemented.
Yeah, we didn't
Like,
have the
Yeah.
structure. Good.
Yeah, zero structure. Like anybody that's been to the Blind Pig knows that we're seating space only. And at that time, it was like a free for all. I'm sure people that came here at the start noticed they were waiting forever for a drink because there was a million people in here. You can only push out the product as quick as you're able to do. It is cocktails. They take like a couple of minutes. So there's a lot of factors.
Man, we didn't have a kitchen.
didn't
Like
even
here,
have a
if you
kitchen.
want to go into it, I'm sorry for
No,
coming
no.
across you, man, but you want to go into it, man. When we first opened, we started off right with a Cambro.
Yeah.
We had one Cambro with 4 quarts of blackberry puree in it, right? And we had our one night stand. Man, we went through that in the first 2 hours. I spent like hours at the time making that in my kitchen at home. James
Yeah.
was at home making the raspberry shrub.
Yeah.
Right. What happened from there?
Wow.
Literally, I'm
100%.
running up 8 flights of stairs because I live on the 4th floor of a building with no elevator, and I'm running up and down with frozen goods and making blackberry puree to come back here tomorrow after work until 4 a.m. And it was like, all right, we either do this or we and show face, or else we don't do it and lose face. And it was like, we didn't have a kitchen, we didn't have a prep team, we didn't have a basement, we didn't have barely a bar back. We had me, Justin, James, and shout out to Ev right now, one of the guys who used to work with us, Evan Santoro. But that's what we had. And we were like, we were literally standing outside being like, I hope someone who wants a job walks by because we need someone to do something right now.
Cheese and crackers.
Yeah.
Man, sorry, bro. Go
No,
back
no,
here.
no.
Yeah.
It's cool. So ever since that day, I just kind of like at the very least there was definitely some similarity to like the ambiance that you'd feel in the city that I was definitely really, really accustomed to. And really used to. And even in that way, the way you said like, oh, at least you saw an opportunity to kind of like do something. That's something that I definitely valued in all the places that I went to, that I would go around to in the city, is like they were willing, like they were excited to, because they, you have this selection behind you. And I remember us having this conversation. I was like, at the time I was working at Goosefeather, and I was really like, there's a great bar back selection there behind the bar that they have of all types of categories of spirits and subcategories, which is really nice. And I remember telling Dano, I was like, man, I want to say that Goosefeather probably has the best back bar in all of Westchester, just by sheer selection. And Dano looks at me and he goes, this time next year, I'm going to make you eat your words.
Man, we definitely have the best.
Yeah.
We definitely
But you've helped us get there, bro. Like you've brought in so many different items and been like, try this, do this, and it's grown. But
Yeah.
like, our mission is number 1.
Yeah,
and
we
we're
definitely-
not stopping until
That's
we get
crazy.
there.
We definitely have the best back bar selection in all of Westchester. There's no competition in terms of like just like what's accessible to most people.
Yeah.
Right. There's no comparison if I say like the Blue Hills back bar, because they have a lot of stuff up there that's like most people don't even have access to being privy to order it.
I used to love when Marlon came in and be like, yo, Blue Hill just got that, and I'd be like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
try to find it.
Yeah.
Send Kirby on a mission to get it.
Yeah.
But it was dope. That was one of the cool things about it too, is the exposure to like some new products that are like just hitting, and obviously they want this place to have it because they're, gonna put more of a forefront to it than
Marlon came in one day with a bottle of Don's Mix.
Oh,
in a jar.
yeah.
I was like, yo, what is this? He was like, yo, it's Don's Mix. I was like, yo, man, do you want a job?
Yeah.
I was like, yo, bro. I'm like, you got to come work with us. I'm like, we need to be working.
We
Yeah,
need the
I
Don's
think
mix.
that was. I think from that day is when the courting process started.
Yeah.
And then I don't know how much
Courting
time.
process.
Yeah, I don't know how much time went after that, and then sure enough, what was it like February,
Yeah.
mid-February,
We were
late
just waiting
February.
for an opening to get you in
Yeah.
there. But man, we've been working together since, and we've been having a great time.
Yeah,
and
man.
we've been growing together. Marlon's the one who initially, like, I had foraged in Ireland, but like I don't know where and I don't know the produce of New York, which he learned this, I'm sure, a lot about Blue Hill. And
Oh, definitely.
he brought me foraging like a couple of times, and I was like, yo, this is where it's at. Like, you know, this is the type of stuff that we got to be getting into. And then we were talking about sustainability. And, you know, we've spoken many times about at some point getting our own, like, piece of land where we can grow our own stuff, farm
Yeah.
to table. That's our end goal. But, like, when we met up, I was like, all right, I'm like, this guy has something to teach me, and I have some stuff to learn from him. But on the other end of it is, like, some stuff that we noticed from other bars is like, right, Marlon had never worked in a dive bar.
Yeah.
So it's like he had this level of like accessibility and he had this level of like structure. But me and James, we started working with like no bar back. We were
Zero.
21. We didn't have a manager. We were just left with the keys of this bar and be like, close up before 8 a.m. in the morning. And we were like left to do our thing. So I'm like, there's something to be said about what you can learn from both ends of it. You know,
100%.
And man, it's been a great crack since
Yeah.
we've gotten going.
I'd say like one of the most difficult things for me is like I've been at very, very few restaurants, right? It's only been like Blue Hill. I've been at Goose Feather, and I've been here in a brief stint up in Bedford. But I'd say the amount of unlearning that I had to do in order to grant myself the ability to take on the knowledge that I needed to be in a place like this was like help. Like I had to unlearn things to learn new things.
Yeah.
And vice versa. And one
Same
didn't help
here.
me without the other. And then eventually, you know, like it all settled down and kind
I
of
feel like that's
compacted a
something
good
you
foundation.
get from every new place you go to. Like one thing that we noticed was like, first thing I noticed in the Penrose, very first thing I was like, yo, their system for finding a tab compared to Brazen Fox's system for. When I worked in Brazen Fox, it was like you got a card. There's four corners to a huge bar. You put this card under a bottle,
Yeah.
right? Now
The closest bottle
it's
you
Saturday
can
night.
see. Yeah.
There's literally 100 cards underneath all these different bottles, and someone who was at the other side of the bar comes up and is like, "My name's John Vieira. Can I get my card?" And I'm running around the whole bar checking every
Oh,
card.
wow.
Then I go into the Penrose. They had like a little like filer,
A roll
and I was like,
Rolodex.
"Why did
Yeah.
we not? Why have I been running around bars like doing laps
This
of
little
bars?"
square could
It's so I feel like everywhere you go, you see you're like, "Oh, they do this different. They do this worse. They do this better," and then you take it, right? From there, you know, you take it. But
Marlon, there's a question I want to ask you about Blue Hill.
Yeah.
The clientele that you serve, obviously they're like a higher society kind of people. But is there anybody that you had the chance to serve that you were like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm serving this person? And it could be anybody. It could be, you know, immediately my head goes to somebody famous. But I imagine that you met somebody who's like actually famous, like so famous that they're not known. You follow me?
Yeah. There's definitely Blue Hill definitely has its list of high profile clientele that comes in through the doors pretty regularly.
did you meet any of the Rockefellers?
I have met a few of the Rockefellers. A handful of them have definitely come in just for on the event side of things. There's like they usually do like conferences and stuff that's really early in the morning. So we're the setup team that goes in there and does, you know, puts up the buffet and puts up the coffee and sets their conference room up for them and all that fun stuff. And then you're there, like, you know, ensuring that everything is kind of going pretty smooth. Anywhere from like rappers to, you know, people, leaders of Fortune 500 companies, anybody who's, you know, politicians, high profile politicians have been in there. Like we've served the Obamas. I remember one time, you know, I'm standing walking at the door and Belly walks in through the door as a famous rapper. And I'm like, this is like, and it can be on any given. So like Justin Timberlake and Cameron Diaz would come in on Sundays, like they would come Mother's Day.
Oh, very nice.
They just
Mother's
randomly
Day.
just drop in.
Most Mother's Day they would come in. Like I remember them being there. At least I was there for about 5.5 years. I want to say they probably came in twice, 2 or 3 Mother's Days. So that's, I mean, out of
So, besides Blue Hill, right?
Mm-hmm.
You like flats or you like drums?
ooh, wait.
No,
I'm a flat guy.
Yeah, this is
Flats.
something that we were.
Flats,
Flats?
flats over drums.
Nah.
Yeah.
Tony,
like-
Tony,
I
you
like
like
teriyaki,
drums?
extra
I like,
crispy,
yeah,
all
yeah. I
flats.
used to
Flats?
actually, I got into
All
playing the drums too, so I kind of like the drums. And you kind of like, I like to eat like ranch. You know what I mean?
No.
So you can't
No.
dip it the same.
With
Like
with the you got to do the pouring technique on the flat, Tony. It's different.
But like you gotta go on the side. You can just
Well,
dip
here's the
that
thing
mother-
about the flat, right? When you're eating a flat, right, you're kind of working on your dexterity with your tongue, right? Your mouth dexterity gets worked when you're eating flats.
Personally, I just think the meat is more tender on the flats.
Hey yo,
Yeah, you break it open and the meat's all soft. Whereas on the drum, it's like you have to rip that shit off, and it
You know
gets
how to
messier.
amputate that one bone just right? That's the best bite.
Yeah,
I don't
that
know,
is.
but yeah, you already have one bone with the drum.
Yeah, but you got to eat around it.
Nah, dude, now me.
It's a big question, right?
I mean,
like the
that's-
flats or
I-
drums. When you ever see when you get someone and they come to you and they're like, "Can I get all drums? Or can I get all flats?" And you're like,
Never had somebody ask for all drums.
"Yeah, no,
Really?
No one's ever asked me for.
yeah,
"Can I
you're not
get
wrong." Like
Yeah.
I
an
get
order
asked
of
for
wings,
more.
all, everyone always
flats
asks
more.
for all flats. No one's ever asked for all drums.
Right, where's your best chicken wing at?
best chicken wing? Man, ours are fucking awesome.
Yeah,
Thai
ours are
fig
pretty-
down at the Brian Pig of Westchester, my favorite.
Yeah, banging
Yeah.
Thai fig.
Pineapple
I'm
tequila
a
type thing.
sauce on the side kind of guy with
Yeah.
our wings because ours come out like really perfectly crispy, which I really enjoy. So like sauce on the side is great. Candlelight's always a staple of Westchester.
Man,
We've gone there
candlelight
for-
is a staple.
yeah.
I've
It's
heard
just
that
like-
it dropped.
Dude,
though,
I've been going
like,
there since
quality.
like high school. Like
Yeah, honestly, I've went to Candlelight because people have like bigged it up to me loads of times. I think they're doing great business. Don't get me wrong, but like every
Is it
time
the-
I go down, I'm like, this is what these people are going nuts about.
yeah, it's not the best wing, but
They're
they're
open
really
all
good.
night.
They're really good. They're open till
Yeah,
Do
it's
you guys
definitely
have
very
to-
convenient. We have a couple of guests that come in here. One guy's name is Scott, huge help to us. But when he used to go to Candlelight,
Rich Scott.
Scott Leach,
Oh,
Scott,
Big
like
Scott.
Ritz Scott, yeah,
Ritz Scott?
Ritz Scott.
Ah,
So,
yeah, Scott.
Ritz Scott. But when Scott used to go to Candlelight like 20 years ago, he said that people would literally show up in suits
Yeah.
to eat wings.
But at a certain point when you have that name, now you have the
Yeah.
name. You know, you have
Yeah,
the
been
name.
building it
it's
for
like-
20 years.
Yeah.
You
Longer.
Makes sense.
Did you guys eat the cartilage?
gotta be longer.
Sometimes.
Tony-
Man,
Yo, have you guys
Tony
ever seen me?
clears the
Yeah,
wing.
yo,
He
like that shit's
clears the-
gone.
He
Like
leaves just a little bone.
I like bone marrow. Like bone marrow
chicken
goes-
bone
I
marrow.
love bone marrow, but
Inside
have
the
to-
chicken.
When you want bone marrow,
Chicken's
you're gonna be
already
coming
dead,
to the
bro.
orange.
Chicken's already dead. Nah, make sure.
All right.
100%.
Yeah, I think I'm on page with Marlon. I do have a lot of people asking, can I get all flats? But I've never had anybody be like, can I get all drums?
Really, you guys
So that
all
makes
like
sense.
flats?
I'm a flat
Man, I'm
guy.
a flat guy.
Yeah.
Flat.
Wow.
Yeah.
The only drum.
Yeah.
Tony's the only one.
We should take a vote on this. We'll put it on YouTube and let you guys figure out which reigns supreme. The wings.
So
the
another
drums or the
question for you,
flats.
Marlon. Everybody who's in the industry has their their caffeine of choice,
Yeah.
and you work with people. I've worked with dudes who are gonna go in and be like, "Yo, give me 6 cans of Monster before this starts," and then I've worked with a dude who's gonna be like, "Yo, I'm about to bang down 3 shots of espresso." So it's like, what's your caffeine of choice?
Man, I've seen people do some wild shit to stimulate themselves for their shifts. Remember one time in the really early days, there was this dude who used to come in probably like 10:30 in the morning, 11 o'clock in the morning, back in the days when we were open that early. And he'd walk in and he'd get a Chardonnay and a shot of Jameson. And he'd sit there. He'd be in and out in 10 minutes. He'd chug the Chardonnay, take the Jameson in about 3 sips, and he's out the door. And I'm like, this guy's starting his day. Like
That's
that
crazy.
was the key in the ignition for him.
He means business.
Man,
Yeah.
when I worked down in Sean's, right across from the Rockefeller building, we had there was I don't know what TV show that they film in there, but it's one of the news shows, maybe like Today, one of these guys, but it's right there. They did it in the Rockefeller, and there would be people who came in as part of the production team, and they would like, can I get 1 Chardonnay, down it in 1 sup and leave? And
Yeah.
I'd be like, yo, this dude just drank a fucking glass of like wine and 1 sup and bounced. And then
Yeah.
he'd come back in an hour and he'd get like a glass of red. Bang, and go. And I'd be like, yo, this dude's nuts.
Yeah.
But man, when we worked at Brazen Fox, we used to have like a little kitty between all the bartenders, and we actually used to buy like pre-workout. We'd be
Yeah.
like going around, we'd have what was the
Often.
one? Amino Energy.
Yeah.
We'd have like we'd be drinking amino energies on Saturday night. We'd be sometimes even like full blown
Oh, God.
pre-workout. And
Yeah.
We'd be like buzzing behind the bar.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I'll be honest. I've gotten to the point where I was like, okay, we're closing on Friday night at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and we
Right.
got to be back in at 9 a.m. to set up for St. Patrick's Day. And anybody that's partied in White Plains on St. Patrick's Day, it is mayhem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It starts like immediately.
Yeah.
As soon as the bar's open, it starts immediately because the parades come through. And then once the parades show up, every single other person in the entire planet ends up
Yeah.
in the same space.
And they're all
And,
shit faced.
and sometimes you need something a little bit stronger than coffee.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you need something a
Yeah.
little bit stronger than amino acids. I wouldn't go that far, Tony.
No,
but you definitely need
You
some
definitely need some
pharmaceutical help.
pre-workouts.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
actually-
maybe some Adderall. Who knows where you end up going?
Yeah,
with it.
no
we
idea
actually
what that
used
is.
to do the Nitroflex, and I have a funny story. I took a scoop one time because I was like, oh, you know, I take pre-workout to work out, and it's not the same because when you work out, you're actually working out.
Yeah,
You're-
yeah.
You know,
You're getting the blood
but
going.
yeah, and like, man, I had
Now
to
you're
like step out.
shaking,
I had to
you
step
get
out because I
nervous.
was so bad. It
And that was
really,
here?
really bad. Yeah,
Yeah?
it was really bad. And
Man,
I was
Esco
like,
used to bring it in for work sometimes.
Yeah.
We were
I was like, bro, I gotta
crazy on
go.
Saturday
Yeah,
nights.
yeah, we did used to be crazy. I have a funny story I should let you know. It's not my story to tell, but I'm going to tell it anyway. So for the sake of the story, I'm going to change a few of the names. So in contrast to stimulation, obviously there's stuff that doesn't stimulate and goes another way. So I was working in a place, let's call it Paddy's, right? One of the bartenders, let's call him Mickey, right? Mickey noticed that his bar back kept going around like eating his snacks all the time. So after a while, Mickey's like, "Yo, I'm sick of
Did
this
I work
guy
at
eating
Paddy's?
this." You could have possibly worked,
There's a possibility that someone like me worked at Paddy's.
possibly somewhere at Paddy's.
I remember this, Paddy.
I think he did. 'Cause the story you told me, I think
He may
did
have
work.
possibly
Yeah.
worked at one point in this place
Yeah.
called Paddy's.
Possibly.
So anyway, said bartender Mickey was like, sick of this guy eating all my snacks. He's like, I'm gonna get this guy. So he thought it was a harmless situation, but he brought in CBD, not CBD, what it's THC infused gummies.
They were strong gummies too.
Strong gummies, yeah. So anyway, he brings them around and puts them in a little bowl, and Mickey's waiting for the barback to come around. He sees the barback come around. He's like, okay, time to shine. Mickey's like pretending to be chewing the gummies. And the barback comes along, and he's like, hey, what's this? He's like, it's just, it's just a little snack. He's like, for me? Because, yeah. It takes out like a handful of them, like 5 of them.
Yeah.
5 of them.
Man, if
eats
I was
them.
possibly there, I was possibly cracking it.
Oh god. Yeah. So anyway, like 45 minutes to an hour later, apparently the place is like packed. Like everyone's just going to tits. It just randomly got smashed out of nowhere.
And there's this human snail walking through. Like,
No, man,
No,
he wasn't
they-
walking.
they
He was in the corner.
They can't find this guy anywhere. So they can't find the bar right there. Where the hell is the bar back?
This guy didn't never
Yeah.
know what THC was.
Yeah. Never knew ever.
He didn't
So-
even believe that that's what it was.
Yeah.
No
So anyway,
shit.
so the story goes that Mickey goes down, looks for him, finds him inside the walk-in box, like in the corner, like, yo, what is that? He's like freaking out. Oh god! And then
No.
I don't know what
Dude,
happened
I
after
love
We
that.
had to
story.
convince him. If I was possibly there, we had to possibly convince him not to go to the police. Possibly.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Possibly.
Awesome.
Poor old Mickey.
Lads, before we
Paddy's.
get too far off track, because we have so much to do and so little time, I want to shout out to this book that I picked up. It's a modern approach to cocktails. Frankie Solark. I believe he has a Netflix show coming soon. Anybody who's interested in getting into the modernist approach to cocktails should definitely get onto this. This is a great book and a lot of good information. He actually sent this to me. It's called The Bar Chef. It's called The Bar Chef, and it's by a dude in Toronto. The bar is called The Bar Chef. It's in Toronto, and they do pretty much modernist cocktails. I think he's affiliated with Grant Achatz from the Alinea, and I'm pretty sure that Grant says that he got a lot of his inspiration from the Alinea and their cocktail program from this gent. Speaking of that, we're going to speak a little bit about our cocktail program. So anybody who knows us knows we flip the menu seasonally. So we're coming up to the new season, and we've all been working on some stuff. I'm not going to go too far into the cocktails that we're going into, but we have here some house-made bitters that we've been working on. This one is dill, fennel seed, cumin seed, licorice, green, cardamom, and then some London dry gin. We've got our house-made orange bitters. These will all be taking about another 6 to 8 weeks before they're even close to being good. But this one's got saffron, cardamom, licorice, orange peels. It's all the good stuff, guys. You want to come in, you want to try out some of our house-made bitters, cinnamon, some star anise, and over here, last but not least, we have our chamomile and fennel bitters, which we're working on. This one is the same thing. It's London dry gin. I'm not going to bore you with some of the ingredients, nor am I going to educate you with some of our secret ingredients. But this is only a small touch on. We have like 8 different flavors that we're working on, all in house. And along with that, we work on some of our non-alcoholic bitters. And when I say bitter, I don't mean like bitters that you flavor cocktails with. I mean bitter is in like Campari. So we have a non-alcoholic Campari that we've made in house. Derives like mostly from grenadine root and many other things, including grapefruit. But if you want that, you know, to try a cocktail, you don't want to drink any alcohol, you're pregnant, or you just don't like alcohol, I suggest you come in and ask us, because we have some amazing stuff, and soon we're probably going to put it into production and get it going where you can take some home for a fee. But
Naturally.
you know, our new cocktail program's really coming along. We have a cocktail of the day to be made for you guys. It's going to be made by Memo, and we're going to put that in later. It was made by our bartender Julio Santos, and Julio is he's not here right now, and he didn't name this cocktail yet, so we're going to name it for him, and we're going to call it the Art Appreciation. And it's a cocktail that has avocado, kiwi, chartreuse, banana, gin, and a little bit of honey and agave.
She couldn't look me in the eye. Baby girl, what's on your mind? If it bothers you, then tell me. I don't wanna see you cry. I don't wanna lose you, baby. Open up your mind. It's more than me, it's you and I. Wanna rock with you all day and night. Tell me what to do and I'll survive. You and I, baby girl, just you and I. Let me open up your heart tonight. While we look up at the sky, you and I, baby girl, just you and I. Don't have to put your guard up. Let me open up your mind. Don't know how to deal with the past, cause I'm numb, learning all the basics. Good things take time, and I'm sure of my intentions. When you're looking back, don't forget that the journey is a blessing. Dirty dancing and some good romance.
What do you think about relationships in hospitality?
Oh,
You know,
God.
what's your experience with relationships in hospitality?
They're the worst.
Poor.
They're the worst.
I've seen them work in like at Blue Hill, man. There's a lot of that. Like people,
I feel like
it's
in
almost
our
like a
industry-
matchmaking place.
In our industry, there's a lot of that,
Oh yeah,
right?
Like, I think
feel
people definitely have met.
every place I've ever worked, someone's hooking up with someone inside
Yeah.
of the staff, and sometimes it goes great.
That
Yeah.
might be every industry, but I know
Has to
that
be.
we are in a very, social setting, and a lot of places very informal setting. So it's kind of, even more so.
more opportunities.
Yeah, and
to,
you know what? It's in the air in a bar. It's in the air.
100%.
People came here to meet people.
Yeah.
You know, someone's just hit on you. You know, someone's tried to talk to you. You're the bartender. Next thing you know, they leave. You're still in that mode, and the hostess comes up to you, and you're like, how you doing? But like, that's really where it's at. It's definitely in the air. You know, so it's like I feel like
Yeah.
it's prominent in everywhere because human interaction. It's nature, but
Yeah.
inside hospitality, it seems to be like huge.
Yeah, it's like some people are really like totally against it, where they'll fire you on the spot. I know in Blue Hill they used to have that in their contract where like you can't have there's definitely like no
Wow.
relationship to be had, like when you're working there, let alone between like a manager and an employee.
It's definitely an interference at times,
Yeah.
unless you're, completely segregated. But, as soon as your relationship comes into it, like for instance, you're the waitress and, your boyfriend's the busboy.
Yeah,
Right now you have a thing of like, now you have like your partner telling you what to do.
I
Right?
actually
And
had
it's
that
like,
situation happen. Yeah. It's well, first of all, you just have to see the person like constantly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And work is kind of like okay, let me step away and actually do work. You know what I mean?
yeah, I
But-
enjoy to be, if I'm in a relationship,
Yeah.
which I am, I enjoy to get out. Like, I enjoy to be like, all right, now this is my
Yeah.
time where, like, don't fucking
Yeah.
talk to me.
But you have to stay with this person even at work. You know what I mean? And then when they tell you to do something, because I was in that position when in the Birch Collective where I met Esco. My ex, fucking bitch. That she was a waitress, and she was a manager at one point, and she had to tell me what to do. And then sometimes I'd be like, but I really don't. But I really don't have to do this. And then, like, yeah, it was like complicated.
Well, that's where
Yeah.
that's not my job thing gets even more like, you know, involved with it. I don't think that like it's the best case scenario, to be honest, because like realistically, do you really want your partner to be the person to have to put you in your place when you're slacking?
Yeah.
Yeah, and not only that, man. Like, I'm sure in every single relationship, both partners talk to their friends about what's going on in the relationship. Of course, people have to vent.
Yeah, so who do you
No.
vent to?
Well, I don't know, man. But if you're at work, I'm sorry, if you work with your significant other, you know that they're venting to their coworkers. You're probably venting to your coworkers, and you walk in, and it's like, all right, everybody knows our business, and not only our business, they know one side of our business. You know, and now the whole view of you as a partner is completely changed. Listen, I'm sure there's been tons of people who have ended up together that have worked together, but I guarantee there's also a ton of people who have like
Left
had
jobs.
some really toxic relationships. Yeah, I definitely agree that people shouldn't
definitely
be,
can't be good.
together all the time.
Some
It-
accidents.
Yeah.
It definitely can't be good when like you have a problem in bed. Right, when it comes to like you have a problem in the scratcher, like, you know, the love life isn't happening well. Because James said it.
Then
it's
you got to
like,
bring it into work.
yeah,
all the
well, it's like
frustration.
you're talking to, imagine like you're in here and your woman's like, yeah, he couldn't get hard. No, he couldn't get hard. I don't know if it's me. And now someone's looking at you and they're just like, look at that flaccid ass bartender.
And then in contrast to that, let's say you don't have any problems and things are going very well, and next thing you know, somebody asks your partner, oh, you know, how was it? They're like, oh, it was good. He's like, what do you mean it was good? Oh my God, it was fucking great. Everyone was crazy. Then next thing you know, you come into work and you're getting a little bit more attention than you should because they let slip a little bit more than they should. And then that can create a seed of jealousy. And then it's like, oh, no.
Well, that's the worst. It's when you have
it's just weird.
like
Yeah.
when you have a couple working together, and then next thing you know, there's like jealousy that's happening in the space, and I've seen it in a lot of ways, and it's great. Like I've seen breakups happen like in the middle of like just before service,
Ugh.
like, and it's like
That's not going to be good.
like what?
Everybody's just like,
Yeah.
everybody's just sitting there like,
Now and then that, you know, that leaks out, and you know it's never a good thing. So I think for that, you know, there's definitely those things where the outside problems of relationships seek into the workplace, and it's like,
yeah, if you were to ask me, I would say I would prefer to keep relationships outside of work.
yeah,
You know what I mean? For tons of reasons. But some people just
Man, but here,
don't think
you
so.
got to say to yourself, like, in the start, when a relationship's exciting and you're having a good time, right? Like, you know.
it
when-
seems like
No,
a
it's
good
like
idea.
when you come to work and it's like, it seems like the best idea ever.
like, what do you
It's like,
mean?
wow,
At the
work's
time.
going to be this
We
fun.
both like
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like we both like each
This
other.
is
Like
gonna
we
be
can
fun.
just you know, do it
Man,
all the time.
I remember in one place I worked with, one of the dudes got a hand job in the like party room, and they both got fired for it. And I remember just being like, that's brilliant. Like, that's one of the funniest things I ever heard in my life. This dude's going off with his girlfriend. He's not even banging her, right?
Yeah.
He's not banging her. He's not like, you know, no oral sex. He's like, give me a quick old fashioned. And they're doing it in the party room, which is the room to be partying in. Like, you know, you obviously just need to
Oh,
blow off a
God.
bit of smoke. And then next thing you know, it's like 2 years, no income in one household.
Yeah.
There you
How are
go.
you paying rent?
I think
man.
I think that's important to note as well, that one of the perks of this job is all the extracurricular activities. You know, some people get a job, they get dental. Some people get office work and they get 401ks.
right?
We get extracurricular activities sometimes.
Yeah, man,
get our
it's like
cardio
this. You're gonna be a lot more experienced. You're gonna be a much more experienced dude. Like, you know, that's the end of it. It's like, and that says a lot. It goes into, you know, in the long run, it's like I meet dudes who are like 35. They're married, and they've slept with a handful of chicks. And now it's a thing of like, oh, you know, like I want to go back out there and see what's out there. And it's like, yeah, bro, I've been out there.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've been to the
Yeah,
bottom of the barrel.
you
I've
definitely-
scraped it.
You definitely live
Scraped it.
a little bit more of life as far as the social realm goes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you consider the social element one part of life, working in this industry, you definitely get to experience tons of that.
And that's definitely something that's always been said is like, you meet, everybody should be in the service industry at least once in the hospital.
I agree.
Just because the amount of, you'll never meet a greater variety of people in a smaller span of time than being in a space because of just how many
It gives
people
you a
come in and
better
out.
perspective as a
Yeah.
guest.
Speaking of guests, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, so like as a guest, it gives you a better perspective, and one thing that I enjoy about working in the industry we do work in is, as a guest, when I go to places, I see things that and like I'm also obviously I'm very critical of my experience when I go somewhere, and I'm not expecting like magic from anywhere. When I go to a diner, I'm not expecting like to get like what I get here or what I'd get at Blue
I don't want
Hill.
Salt Bay coming out with my,
exactly. Like that's the opposite of what you want.
Yeah.
But what you do want at a diner is a nice, friendly waitress or a waiter.
Yeah.
Like what you do want when you go to a dive bar is the guy. He doesn't have to make anything, and I'm aware of all the shit he's not making.
Yeah.
I'm aware of all the lemons and limes that aren't being cut
Yeah.
in here. So I expect a bit of banter from him. Like I expect some crack. And James is big on hospitality when he goes to places.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a huge believer in the industry should be referred to as the hospitality industry, because we go there to be served and to be wowed and to have experiences. And you can go places that the service is on point, like everything's on point, and that in itself has a little bit of magic, but only when it's on like point, like Michelin star quality service. But if you go to a place and the service is okay, and then the hospitality is non-existent, it just destroys the whole experience. Like, for example, I went into the city a couple of weeks ago. I don't want to name the space specifically, but very highly rated. The concept was really cool. The menu was cool. The drinks were cool. The place was cool. The location was cool. Everything was cool. But I'm sitting at the bar for about 20 minutes, and nobody said hi. Nobody says, how you doing? Nobody said where you're coming from. And we said to all the guys here that it takes very, very little to create a good impression. Just, hey, how you doing? Have you been here before? Where'd you come from? Oh, you came from here. Oh, thanks so much for visiting us. Then you're pretty much good. Now, conversely, I went to a place, and I do want to name this place because this guy was great. We went to Undercoat. So for any of you that don't know, Coat is a Michelin star Korean barbecue place in the city, and directly underneath it, they have a speakeasy called Undercoat. So I thought I was going to get myself into something that's a little bit more.
Undercoat.
Yeah, Undercoat's great. I thought I was going to get myself into something that was a little bit more pompous because it was Michelin star speakeasy essentially. Go downstairs, and one of the bartenders' name was Chase. Really cool guy. Shot the shit with us for a good 45 minutes. Just a real friendly dude. And I'm like, this is what hospitality is all about.
Worked on making you want to enjoy your time there.
Yeah, like he just treated me like a friend essentially.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is why I'm mentioning it right here, and why I would probably go there and recommend it to my
Man,
friends.
Marlon just got back from Miami.
Oh, yeah.
And he was talking about hospitality there. Like, give us your experience, man.
Man, my experience in Miami with their level of hospitality is very night and day. I think I had a saving grace experience just the day before I left. But Miami you think of it as a place of, this is where a lot of people want to go and want to be for the right reasons. And you would assume in that kind of setting that there's the social functions that kind of support it, like, the things that we like to do in New York, like dining and cocktail bars, at least amongst us. And that's for us being here. That's not doing the clubbing and the heavy partying that people just go out there to see because they're there temporarily. After a while, you look for the mainstay kind of things to enjoy. So in doing so, it was hard, man. It was really rough. There's a lot of rough edges in there just because you get into this place and a lot of people already have an assumption that you're a tourist. So they're already kind of standoffish because they think, okay, you're temporary, which is kind of a really terrible way to approach things because it's like...
If anything, right, you ever see, and I'm only going to say this very briefly, but like when the monks that do art, they usually do it, make an amazing thing, and then they get rid of it immediately.
Yeah.
Something that's temporary should be looked at as more reason to give a
100%.
better experience.
Like I have a shorter period of time to take advantage of this opportunity.
Yeah.
In a sense. I felt like a lot of approaches were very transactional. It's like, remember, went to this hotel bar one time and walk up to the bar and the guy looks at me and goes, "Can I have your hotel key?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm actually just here for a drink. I'm not staying here." He's like, "All right, give me your credit card." And I was like, in my head, I'm just thinking, I was like, you already want my money. I didn't even get a hello. I didn't even you didn't even show me a menu. You didn't even give me a glass of water. There was no welcoming.
Yeah.
None of the stuff you learned at Blue Hill.
Nothing. Oh, I mean, that's a different, we learned to go definitely above and beyond before. At Blue Hill, you learn to kind of like think for the guests before they have to think that they have to think about that.
Yeah.
Like that's the level of beyond that they go, which is fascinating. And you learn a lot of detail in that.
We're
regard.
not at that right now, but we will be.
No, but I
where
think
we're at in here, honestly, is like when someone comes through the door here, like we make sure to acknowledge them. Every one of us, from you to me, like every one of us, we come in here. It's hard to get through our doors without getting greeted by multiple people. You know?
boy, what's going
This
on
is
over here?
Julio's cocktail, avocado,
Oh yeah.
kiwi.
Thanks, Memo.
Thank you,
Thank
Memo.
you, Memo.
So
Top shelf Memo.
Be aware of
Let's
your
all-
wash lines, folks.
we'll continue talking about it, but let's try
Yeah.
Julio's cocktail
Shall
and
we?
see what we think of it here.
Cheers,
Cheers, lads.
Cheers, guys.
To being naked and famous.
We were definitely naked. Now all we need is famous.
I got you.
Oh yeah. Some people have morning green juices. I have a cocktail with avocado and kiwi in the morning.
Man, I really
Avocado.
enjoy the fat content of the avocado.
Yeah.
Gives it like a smooth, velvety texture.
Yeah, it's lush.
Yeah, avocado in a cocktail is really good. Actually, I'm surprised. Well, I'm not surprised. You know, avocado is great on everything.
Yeah. That's grand. Chartreuse and banana in there is really good.
Yeah, the chartreuse is lovely.
Yeah.
So since we're on the topic
I think that was
of
it.
poor experiences,
Yeah.
does anybody remember the shittiest shake they've ever seen?
Ooh.
Oh, man.
Shake. I have a funny story, but go.
Here, I'm not gonna name any bars. We're never gonna name bars when it comes down to this stuff.
No.
I don't think, because it's like, you know, you don't want
Everyone
to
has
people
learning
on the
curves.
spot. But honestly, I've walked in places and people are looking me dead in the eye and they're like,
Yeah,
and I'm looking
jerking
at
off.
them and I'm
shake
like,
waiting.
yo, I'm like, don't do that. I'm like, just don't do that.
This is for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like,
Crack the tin
I went to
open.
the cocktail bars and the guy's like to me. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, oh man, I'm like, there's no enthusiasm. You're
Man.
doing something that you have to do. You're not putting none of your culture, none of your character, none of you or your essence of what you're bringing to the table into that at all. And it comes across.
Yeah, so basically with like kind of our shake, if you've been here, we kind of, it's a show. Like we kind of all
There's
know
some
that.
showmanship to it.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
So
and I think it's
I,
prideful too.
I went to this place that knew that I worked here, right? So when he started to shake, he looked at me and he was like so shy, and I was like, I felt so bad. I was like, man, just do your thing, bro. Like, don't imagine I'm not here, because I felt really bad for him because he looked nervous, but yeah, that's
You wanted to impress.
yeah.
Which is nice that you can, bring that element to somebody. So that even you have established yourself in a position where people are like, oh shit, he's here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I felt nice.
Yeah.
I think
sure.
worst shake I've ever seen. Definitely my own when I first started. I remember there was a wedding video that one of the videographers sent me from a wedding we did on the farm. This is like 2018, I want to say. And she sent me the clip of me behind the bar because I had like loads of people surrounded my bar. And I'm watching myself shake and I'm like, oh God.
I need to
This is and I saw the
It's
clip
like watching yourself having bad sex.
yeah. Oh, boy. I don't know if I've ever seen my. Anyways. But yeah, dude, I'm like, I watched myself on camera. I was like, this is what I look like?
Yeah.
Like, this is what I look like standing behind there doing this, looking like fucking jerking off Shaq? Like, what the hell?
Man, honestly, when I look, I can't help but to when I look at people, I'm literally like, yo, this is definitely how they have sex.
Right.
I'm like, this dude, like when I see a dude or a lady and they're like, they're doing it, there's some style to it, they're eloquent, their movement is like finesse. I'm like, okay. I'm like, you're moving nice. And then when I see someone all stiff and rigid, I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I know what you're doing again. What about you, Jimmy B?
Speaking of the stiff and rigid, the place that I initially mentioned that I went that was
Patty's.
really cool. Not
Oh,
Patty's, no,
sorry.
the one after that. The one that I mentioned that was cool but did no hospitality. The guy served me. He had a Japanese style
Cobble shaker.
Yeah, cobble shaker. That's the one I'm looking for. So for those of you that don't know, cobble shaker is one large tin with a cap that comes in a concave shape, and it also has a tiny little lid on it. It's one of those ones you've probably seen in James Bond, when he spends a long time building the drink, and then without even saying hello to me, by the way, he puts the cap on, he gets it, stands up rigid tall like this, and he's like shaking.
fucking
I'm like,
robot.
what the fuck is this guy doing? He's shaking
Doing the robot.
He's shaking directly like this, and every like 4 shakes he turns to 45 degrees and then turns back. And I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, if you're putting that much effort into your rigidness, can't you just like say what's up? I don't know. I know that it kind of fitted the whole aesthetic for the place, but I'm like, this just looks weird, man. I don't know.
It just
I was
goes to show, man. Like, just a hey, how you doing? What's the story, lads? Like, it doesn't matter what you say. The acknowledgement and the life that you're bringing to the acknowledgement, like, that goes a long, long way. Like, when I come in and sit down at a bar, if some dude comes up to me and was like, listen, bro, I'm real slammed. Or he doesn't say bro, but he comes up and he's like, excuse me, sir. He's like, I'm very busy, but I'll be right with you. Just give me one moment. Man, I'll wait 10 minutes.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, that's
Yeah.
the difference.
Yeah.
You just need to
remember-
be acknowledged at one point. Like you need,
Yeah.
like you know, like it's an unspoken communication. You know that I'm waiting for you, and I know that you're gonna do your best to kind of make that time as short as possible because you know that I'm sitting here waiting.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
it.
Yeah.
But lads, listen, I think that we should start to wrap this up because we've got some hospitality of our own to deliver to the people of White Plains and anyone who wants to come down to the Blind Pig of Westchester. This is, you know, it's been a great chat, Marlon.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be back on very soon. Quick shout out to Mel. Mel Satin used to work at
Yeah.
us at Le Cuckoo.
We love you, Mel.
We went last
We
night
love
for
you.
a dining experience. It was amazing. She used to work here at the Blind Pig with us, and we hope one day that we can all work together again soon. You know, but we're gonna get her on the podcast while she's still not working with us. And honestly, great lady. She made our night. She made an experience for myself, James, and our partner Kirby. And you know, we got to take a picture with the chef down there, and it's a great place. I'm sure they'll get a star. But guys, thank you for all the support. Please like and subscribe to our video. You know, get on to the Naked and Famous podcast and try make us more naked and more famous. We appreciate you guys. Thank you.
We'll remove one less article of clothing for every 1,000 followers we get.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
When we
Start with the socks.
for the,
Right,
when we
start
get
with
1,000 subscribers, we'll do a naked podcast.
There you go. Ooh.
Thank you, guys.